Greetings to you and welcome to this episode of Grace Podcast. I'm Timothy Muse. I'll be your host as we spend this time together today. It's a joy to be with you. I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you for making this podcast a part of your journey. And I want to thank you for being on this journey, for being willing to examine yourself and dig deeper and see what areas of your life need some attention. Look, we all have places that need attention. It's just part of our reality. But when we're willing and able to examine that, when we're willing and able to look into it and see those places, be willing to enter into those areas that maybe we've been running from or hiding from. Maybe they've been revealed and we just want to keep pushing them down. But you're here because you want to get into that. You're here because you want to see areas of your life where you can expand and grow, where you can be better. The core of Grace Life Coaching is that you be the best you. And so we want to find those places where we're not coming up and not showing up at our best. Now, please hear me when I say this. This does not mean that you are bad. This is not a critique or a judgment in any way. As a matter of fact, because you're here, because you're listening, that's actually a statement of encouragement. It's a statement of benefit. And it's an honor because you are strong enough to get into that self-awareness and say that there's areas of my life that need some attention. So good for you. Good for you for being here. Thank you for allowing this podcast to come alongside you, however you do it. If you're stacking it on top of something else, if you are looking at other things, doing other things, walking the dog, working out, driving in the car and listening, good for you. Good for you for being here. Good for you for taking that step. If you're a first-time listener, welcome aboard. If you're coming back, then thank you for returning and allowing me this opportunity. If this podcast is helpful, please share it out there. Put it out there on your social media feeds. I post on Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and Instagram. If you follow me or the life coaching on any one of those feeds, you're going to see these episodes. Share them out there. Put them out there for others. Look, we're all part of one big human community, and we're interdependent. And when one of us grows, we grow. We expand the human community when we better ourselves. And we can show others the power of bettering themselves. So the human community grows when we expand together. So please share it out there. Put it out there for others. Tag me in it. I really would love to see where you're at. You know, if you want to email these or Facebook message these, please do. Please give them to others. Use them as a gift. If you're looking for a gift for someone else, this is a great gift. Hey, I listen to this podcast, and I really think that it would be something that might be beneficial to you. Give it a listen. If you're on one of the listening platforms, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Amazon Music, then follow us. Give us a rating and review. It tells the platforms that people are listening. And you'll get notifications when a new episode comes out. And if you want to reach out to me directly, GraceLifeCoaching.com is the website. It's got all my contact information, GraceLifeCoaching.com. So GraceLifeCoaching.com, love to hear from you. If you want to do some coaching, you can do some Reiki, some meditation, some sound bath. I have a lot of opportunities out there on the website. So give it out there, GraceLifeCoaching.com. It would be awesome. So here we are in the middle of January, and we're now starting to see, this is January 15th, and actually this is the date that that 80% of people by now lose their New Year's resolutions. And 80% of the people who have made resolutions on January 1st, by 2 weeks out, have waned them away. Either because they haven't worked, or they haven't put in the time or the effort, or it just didn't fit into how they're living their life at this point. So what I want to do, I want to spend some time over the next few episodes talking about resilience. Resilience is so important, and it's often misunderstood, and I really want to kind of dig into resilience and what resilience is. Many people believe that resilience is just pushing through the pain, ignoring exhaustion, refusing to slow down. That's not resilient. Resilient people just don't push through pain and ignore exhaustion and refuse to slow down and just keep giving more and more and more. I want to talk about what resilience truly is, because I truly believe as we look around our world, as we look at ourselves, our family structures, our relationships, when we look into the realm of politics, into the realm of social debate, we are seeing that we're not very resilient people. Resilience is something that is lacking in our human community. And when we can learn to be resilient, and resilience is a learned thing, we are not naturally resilient. When we can learn to be resilient, then we can learn to enter more fully into our own lives, into our relationships, and into the world around us. So I want to talk today about what resilience truly is, and why it begins not with force, not with pushing, not with exhaustion, but with honesty. with honesty about where we are. This is a big thing. Again, when we're looking at ourselves, when we're doing that deep work, honesty, regardless of how difficult that honesty is so massively important. And resilience begins with honesty. Okay. Resilience is the ability to bend without breaking. Okay? Bend without breaking. It's not about avoiding hardship. It's not about having a life free of pain and struggle. It's about staying connected to yourself while hardship exists. Okay? Staying connected to yourself and being able to bend and being able to move and being able to dance and being able to pivot when hardship of whatever kind comes along. And we all know that life has hardships. Life has struggles, whether they're financial or relational or health or exhaustion or work. We know that these struggles come along. It is a part of life. We are built for struggle because life is inherently partially a struggle. That doesn't mean it's always a struggle. If life is always a struggle for you, then we have to go in a different direction. But there are times when life will struggle. Resiliency doesn't allow the struggle to win. Resiliency is the ability to bend without breaking. And when we come alongside resilient people still feel pain. I mean, pain is not something that goes away once we're resilient, because if it did, then most people would be investing massive amounts of energy and time in resilience. Resilient people still feel pain. They still feel grief and disappointment and fear and exhaustion. Okay? So when we study resilience, when we get into being resilient, it's not that we avoid or we do away with these things. They still exist. What makes resilient people resilient is not the absence of struggle. It's not. But the presence of self-awareness, flexibility, and compassion. The presence of self-awareness, flexibility, and compassion. The presence of knowing this is where I'm at. That's that honesty. Is that this is where I am. I am exhausted right now. I am feeling grief right now. I am feeling disappointment right now. I am facing a hardship right now. When we can be honest about that, I've said many times before, when we can name something, when we give it an identity, once we give it an identity, then we can start to build structures to deal with that identity. When we can say, okay, you know what, this is grief that is here right now. I'm feeling this grief over the loss of a loved one or the loss of a job or the loss of my dreams. That grief doesn't have to bury me. It doesn't have to ruin me, but I'm honest in my self-awareness that this is where I am. I'm honest in my self-awareness that this is what I'm experiencing right now. Does it define me? No. Does it direct me? No. But will it interrupt me if I'm not honest about it? Yes, it will. I see so many people that are dealing with grief and disappointment and fear and exhaustion, and rather than embracing it and realizing, look, I'm just exhausted, they keep pushing themselves harder and harder, which then fractures relationships, and it causes health issues, and it causes poor decision making. When we have the self-awareness to know where we are, then that really helps us to be able to move forward, and that's what leads into that flexibility. And when we're experiencing something, whether it's a joy or a sorrow, a struggle or a delight, when we know what that is, we can learn that flexibility. We can learn to be flexible in it. Okay, you know what? This is a season right now where I'm feeling a great deal of grief. I just had a really big disappointment in my job. I thought I was going to get a promotion, and I didn't. And I'm grieving the fact that I'm not going to be able to, at this time, live the life that I want to live or that I long to be living into. Okay, so then we learn flexibility around that. I could just keep pushing. I could just keep trying. But what's going to happen is I'm going to deal with, relational issues. I'm going to deal with health issues. So I can be flexible. So what is the next flexibility? Maybe the life that I envisioned isn't in this path. Maybe it is on another path. That's where flexibility comes in. That's where flexibility to say what I intended, what I planned, and what is being presented to me are two different things. I can either learn to embrace and move through what's being presented to me, or I can just continue to try to make what I plan happen at the expense of myself. Resilient people are able to be flexible. They're able to pivot, to bend around those disappointments, and have compassion. Compassion's a huge thing. We're really good as people about having compassion for friends and family, maybe excusing behavior we shouldn't, or allowing people to act in ways that we wouldn't because of their circumstances. And we can see that, but then can we see that in ourselves? Can we see that compassion in ourselves? Can we have that compassion for ourselves? Most of the time, the answer is no. Most of the time, people don't have self-compassion. Most of the time, people hold themselves to a standard that they'll never be able to reach and then be disappointed when they don't reach them. Compassion is so important because it helps bring resiliency. You know what? I'm human. I can only work 18 hours a day, 5 days a week, or 6 days a week before I'm exhausted. I need to have some compassion for myself. I'm struggling. I'm sick. I'm burnt out. I need to have compassion for myself rather than pushing through. Resilient people see that there is a need for compassion. And look, I said before, resilience is learned. We are not born resilient. When we run into people who show a great deal of resiliency, they learn it, whether they choose to learn it or not. A lot of times we learn resiliency as a reaction to our circumstances, but resiliency is a learned skill. It is a learned technique. It is not something that people just, acquire. They learn it. It grows when we allow ourselves to recover. When we allow ourselves to recover, when we don't allow that grief or that disappointment to stop us, to put a pin in us and go no further. Resiliency is learned when we feel and are able to allow ourselves to recover. When we adapt instead of resist. That's part of the learning process of adapting rather than resisting. Now, there are times when we resist. Of course, resistance is, I'm not going to go Star Trek here and say resistance is futile, because there are some times when resistance is necessary, but more times adaptation is necessary. I'll give you an example. You're driving down the road and you come to a bridge and the bridge is out, all right? And you need to go that way. So there's one of two choices. Well, there's one of three choices. You can go back and never reach your destination. You can sit there and wait for the crew to finish the bridge, which may take months or years, or you can follow the detour, which is going to send you a half mile down the road and cross another bridge and send you a half mile back up again. Resilient people are able to follow that detour. They're able to be like, well, this is going to take a little bit longer, and I really wanted to go this way, but I can't go this way, but I still have a destination. And so I'm going to take the detour to get around this obstacle in order to reach my destination. Resilient people are able to allow themselves to recover. People who don't experience resilience or aren't capable of resilience will just sit and wait and be angry until that bridge is built so that they can drive across the bridge. Most of the time in life, we run into bridges that are out, and we have to learn to adapt rather than resist. And we learn to respond rather than react. Okay, the bridge is out. I can be angry and jump up and down, or I can be sad, or I can say, you know what, I can respond by going around the detour. See, that's life. The path of life is never clear, and it's never easy, and it's never straight. We have bridges that are out, we have, rock falls, we have snowstorms, but when we're resilient, we're able to learn to adapt to that and figure it out. The flexibility, the bend without breaking. And this is not just in the path of life. It is in a lot of things. All right. When we look at relationships, resilience allows us to stay open even after disappointment. It allows us to stay open and flexible and bending even in disappointment. And when you spend time in a relationship with someone long enough, whether it's parents and children, whether it's a spouse, whether it's an intimate relationship, whether it's a work relationship, sooner or later, whether that person chooses to or not, whether that system chooses to or not, there will be a disappointment. They will disappoint you and you will disappoint them. That's just a part of life. That's a part of being close to someone or something for a long period of time. Resilience allows us to stay open even after disappointments. It allows us to move forward in that relationship even after disappointments. Now, please hear me, my friends. Please hear me, my friends. There are some disappointments that break a relationship, of course. There really are. There are some disappointments that break a relationship, and we can acknowledge those, and that's part of resilience, is realizing that, this disappointment has broken this relationship, and I need to bend and adapt to a new direction without this relationship. But many relationships experience disappointments, small disappointments, that if we can stay open and resilient and adapt and be honest with ourselves and with them, then that relationship can grow stronger and more powerful. At work, resilience helps us separate our worth from our productivity. Again, most people work to be productive, but our worth is not in our productivity. Some days we can burn it up and be more productive than we ever thought. And some days, we're just lucky enough to get through the day. Resiliency sees our worth above our productivity. If we're on an exercise routine or an exercise plan, resilience teaches us to listen to our bodies instead of punishing them, to get the rest when we need it, or to push ourselves when we're resting too much. And if we're dealing with pain or trauma, resilience reminds us that healing does not require us to rush through it. There are some things that we heal quickly, and there are some things that we heal over a very long period of time. Resilient people are able to adapt and bend and grow, to have that self-awareness and that flexibility and compassion. Because what happens when we confuse resilience, when we think resilience is just toughness, that's not. Resilient people look tough. They look strong. But, when we just I'm just going to be tough. I'm just going to tough through it. That doesn't work well, because when we tough through things, we often find ourselves suppressing emotions, pushing them down. Rather than being honest with what we feel, we just tamp them down. Well, those emotions don't go away, my friends. They just reside there. And sooner or later, so many emotions get tamped down that they just explode. We don't want to do that. Resilient people just don't tamp down emotions. They figure out safe places to adapt and grow and get those emotions out. Resilience, when it's confused for toughness, there's the avoidance of rest. I just need to push through. My body, I just need to drink another energy drink or do another thing, push through the rest, push past healthy limits, push past what I'm supposed to be. And then it causes disconnect from others. That's not resilience. Ultimately, that just leads us into survival mode. All right. We just get into survival mode. We get into fight or flight. We're in our midbrain all the time, just pushing and avoiding and pushing and avoiding and pushing and avoiding. We can't do that forever. And ultimately, we wind up having some kind of crisis, whether it's a relational crisis, a mental crisis, a health crisis, something. When we confuse resilience with toughness, and I just need to be tough, and I just need to put my head down and push through it, sooner or later, it comes back. Because when we just tamp things down, my friends, they come out. And they come out in crisis mode, and they come out in chaos. We don't want to do that. As we grow and expand, we want to find those places of resilience where we can bend and adapt and grow and not just push through. Again, going back to that bridge moment. If we confuse resilience with toughness, and we're going to build the bridge ourselves, or we're going to try to drive our car down through the creek and up the other side, regardless of how bad of a decision that is. We don't want to do that. That's not resilience. That's survival mode, and we don't want to be in survival mode. We want to be in the best mode possible to grow. True resilience is gentle. It really is. It is allowing ourselves to be gentle with ourselves. It may not be always a gentle process, and it may not be seen in gentle moments, but it is a gentle process, and it grows. It grows quietly. We have to learn to do it. It just doesn't come naturally. Resilience isn't a natural thing. It is a learned state. And it starts with permission to have that self-awareness, to feel, to pause, to be human. And then once we're allowed to be human, we can learn to adapt to our surroundings rather than trying to make our surroundings adapt to us. Most of the time, the stress that I see and the struggles that I see is trying to get our surroundings to adapt to us rather than adapting to our surroundings. Does this mean we have to sacrifice ourselves? No. Does this mean that there aren't times when we have to push? Yes, of course there are. But when we look to require our surroundings to adapt to us, it's a far more intricate struggle than adapting to our surroundings, because our surroundings are so much bigger than we are. Everything that we experience is so much bigger than we are. But it starts with permission. It starts with the permission to feel, to pause, to be human, to dig into that self-awareness, to learn that flexibility, to offer that compassion. That's what resilience is. And the more that we learn it, the more that we're capable of doing it, the stronger we can be within the reality that we live and the work that we're trying to do. That's what I got for you for today, my friends. I hope that's helpful. If it is, please share it out there. Put it out there in your social media feeds. Put it out there on the listening platforms. If you want to reach out to me directly, as always, GraceLifeCoaching.com is the website. I truly would love to hear from you. I absolutely, truly would. At Grace Life Coaching, we want you to be the best you.